Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Thriving Adoptees podcast. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by David Enker from Holland. I think maybe the second Dutch guest we've had on the show. I'm really looking forward to this, David. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Yeah. Now, this guy, ladies and gentlemen, is like we had a conversation last month, and is such a I love his thinking, I love his depth. He's a profound guy, and we don't really mess around here on the Thriving Adoptees podcast. So what as before I hit the record button, David was just we're both riffing away with some stuff, and he came up with the mother of all questions, as he describes it. It's the who am I question. So we're going straight to the very core of the identity thing that is so unclear for us.
Yes.
Right?
I think the short answer to this is I don't know. And the long answer is I do know. And that's defined by us being adoptees, creates a space, I guess, to fill it with a curiosity to things that non-adoptees usually don't sport. It's a curiosity to roots. It's a curiosity to like, where am I coming from and where am I going? It's a question that is more than often exercised by what if I was not adopted? What if I was a rich man's son? What if I was a poor man's son? And these are fantasies that have played a role in childhood, at least as far as I can remember, where I thought my father was a prince or a king. And one day he would collect me to say that I can come back home and I'll be the new king, the king of the country. And in adolescence, you realize that these are just fantasies and you need to fill it with other things. And I was lucky enough not to fill it with booze and drugs, as some people do. But I was confused nevertheless. I tried many studies. I thought, you're going to be whoever you want to be. It's a freedom to be who I want to be. I had very open-minded adoptive parents, and they let me do anything. So I started with physics. I thought that's as mind-boggling as it can be, and it's distant enough from personal questions, but that turned out to be, these personal questions turn out to be too prevalent. So I was studying numbers and gravity and quantum physics, and I thought, yeah, but who am I? That's not going to answer all these questions. And up until this day, I still haven't found a proper answer, but I've made some progress nevertheless. I think it has a lot to do with who you choose to be with, for example. How do you choose your relationships? How do you choose your love? Where do you feel comfortable with what group of people? It's very important to keep on socializing. To more than that, I think this is a more personal matter, but where do you find strength into something that's stronger than yourself? Some people call it faith or spirituality. And this is, again, something that has crossed my path, where I thought there is something bigger than me. And I challenged this force and I said, well, come on up. What am I going to do? Who am I? What am I going to do in life? And it was as if some kind of a strange big hand lifted me up and said, it's going to be all right, but you need to move on. You need to find it out yourself. But it was a force that is very difficult to put into words. But it's something that that doesn't fit in with physics, I can tell you that. It's something that I have, tried to find out what it means. And since I've been listening to all these podcasts about adoptees, I at least recognized part of this big question of who I am in the shared trauma. But again, I don't want to be defined by something negative, but this positive force, I think, is something that defines me, who I am as well. And I think that could be of help to other seekers, in particularly adoptees, who are looking for strength in their psyche, in their mind, in their soul, or whatever.
Do you want to be a seeker or a finder?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's a bit anticlimax if you find the solution to difficult questions, because then it's like, oh, now I need a toilet, or I need to go for a walk, or when you're left with a void. I will probably choose seeker over finder, because it tickles the imagination, and imagination is something that keeps you alive, painful as it can be sometimes.
Yeah.
Not knowing also has a so again, when I went on my spiritual quest, I thought I found it, but then there is always something that slips in your path that you didn't see coming, and it creates new searches. And well, I've got this big challenge at the moment, which is that I've been diagnosed with Parkinson's. That's another dimension to this quest, but it helped me in this feeling like I've got nothing to lose. And these two main obstacles are helping me with what is the silver linings to the tragedy of life is probably, like you say, it's maybe ignorance is bliss. If you're a seeker, you might be still having some curiosity and want to find answers, but have enough awareness that once you reach this level of knowing, new challenges will arise. I guess that's more the when you meditate, for example, you realize the infinity of things.
So I was listening to the speaker that I name check all the time on this podcast, who hates being called spiritual teacher, but
yes,
that's the easiest way to he reckons there's 3 phases, because seeker and finder is just, it's once and done, right? That's it. I've I found my car keys. You know what I mean? And I'm never ever going to lose them ever again. Do you know what I mean? So he reckons there's 3 phases, right? Which is realizing who you are, and that's once and done. You might forget it, but
Yes.
you'll never forget it for long, right? So, and that's a one-off event, seeing who you are. The second one is a phase, and it's seeing the nature of who you are, and then he reckons there's a third phase, which is aligning your thoughts, feelings, actions, and behaviors to that. So, and that process goes on forever.
Yeah. Yeah, a triangle of infinity. It's a wheel.
Yeah, and he'd make it even more complicated than that by saying it's not in time or space. So, yeah, it's beyond time and space. Time and space are, you said that the answers aren't in physics.
Yes.
Right. So the answers aren't in time and space are physical. Well, time is mental.
They're relative.
They're relative, and he's talking about the absolute. And as we're talking about this now, I was thinking about the Tao that can be named is not the Tao. Yes.
The first of the I Ching.
Is
the
it?
first
Okay.
line. Yes, that's a lovely beginning of a book.
Yeah.
One way to open. I don't remember it word by word, but something along those lines. It's a paradox.
Yeah. So my take on identity is that we are consciousness.
Yes. But that might complicate things, what you just mentioned earlier with memory. What is consciousness without memory?
What is consciousness without memory? Well, everything is made of consciousness.
So also when you lose your memory. And also, is consciousness the same as the soul? Soul defined by that when I'm talking to you, it's beyond what I see. I get like a feeling of who you are, and that lives on maybe a certain period of time after you pass away with the memory of your loved ones, etc.
So consciousness isn't limited by time. Given if we're talking about the condition, we're trying to put a name to something with a constraint, and that constraint is time. Assuming the constraint of time, consciousness is forever. Like diamonds are forever. Yeah, my metaphor, diamonds and the trauma.
Yeah.
Diamonds are forever.
Yeah, you're a diamond. But the what's I gonna say?
So my silver lining is seeing that. If I hadn't been through the trauma stuff, I wouldn't have seen that. I wouldn't have seen my diamondness.
But you're now defining consciousness as something beyond space and time.
Yeah, but I don't. Our minds can only get heads round.
You get like a glimpse of this enough to get some kind of idea about something.
It's a metaphor.
Yes.
Placeholder.
But yeah, the Jung talks about this, the subjective consciousness and the collective subconsciousness. where you share certain traits with people from different cultures, where you tap into the same universal consciousness that created this. This is a theory, and I'm now expanding it a little bit. But the fact that you made pyramids both in Egypt as in Latin America is an illustration of how the subjective consciousness is something universal, whereas your deep level consciousness, the more personal one, is where all your childhood memories are stored, for example, or even your dreams. So when it comes to the question of who am I, you can incorporate the more abstract things as we just discussed, but also the more, let's say, earthly definitions of, I'm a web designer, or I'm a Yorkshireman.
It's a multi-layered thing.
Yes.
That's the thing about identity. So, like, you've always been David, right?
Well, you as well.
Well, exactly. Yeah. But you've always been David. I was David.
Yes.
And then I was Simon.
But are you both, or are you both at the same time, or
neither? So the absolute truth never changes.
Yeah.
So names, when we think about identity, we can think about it in terms of the labels we've been given, like David Anthony Flower and David Enker and Simon Jonathan Ben. We can think about the labels. We can think about what we do. Like, you're a web designer, I'm a podcaster, speaker guy.
Yes, well, you step over certain, let's say, more trivial things like names, and try to see the bigger things that connect people.
Yes,
yeah. So
that's why we're all consciousness at that level. We are all one consciousness. That quote that I use all the time from the French book, we're not human beings having a spiritual experience. We're one.
Yes.
We're one spiritual being having
a human experience.
7 billion human experiences.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's that oneness.
Yeah.
Oneness, or that consciousness, it's not what we're conscious of. It's consciousness.
Yeah, that's giving a lot of consolation, because it loosens your constraints that you might have from obligations you think you need to have, or you have to fit a certain role in society. I'm not advocating to just let anything go, but there is more to life. Time exists, it's limited. That's what matters to me. I'm enough aware of time to know that it's short, this life on Earth. And I'm not advocating a hedonistic lifestyle, even though I don't reject it if people do. But for me, it's not fulfilling enough to just go on a binging fest or whatever. I want to feel what it's with other people. I especially the last couple of years, I've felt a need to connect more. I became wiser, I think, by letting go of these parts of identity that are keeping you down, like nationality or religion or political beliefs, or these things don't really matter to me much anymore. Instead, I try to connect with the neighbors, or with the lady behind the till at the supermarket. And I find great joy in these little things, knowing that that's as good as it gets, basically.
Yeah. So, are we our trauma?
No, I would say no. It's a source of our lives. It's the beginning point. There is a trauma, but it's not what defines you. If you're letting it define you, then you're limiting yourself to many things. There's more to it than that. There's also a life creating force that, if you're lucky enough, you can be aware of.
That's what I'm calling consciousness.
Yes. Some people call it God.
Yeah, some people call it God. So you can call it God, spirit, consciousness, awareness, life force, energy.
I think they are, I wouldn't say the same, but very similar at least.
And the common name is I.
Yes. They have been looking for this question, of course, longer than today. And I think in the olden days of, let's say, a couple of thousands of years ago, when the Stone Age people were asking, who am I? They were looking at the stars, and they were looking at the life without electricity and without the clock and without space and time, basically.
What about Zoom? Did they have Zoom? Did they have podcast?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I like to embrace new things as well. Like I love the fact that we have the internet and Zoom, and I'm not scared of artificial intelligence even. I mean, these are new challenges for sure, but I think if used wisely, and that's a big if, they can help expand our consciousness, because you can communicate better, and you can, if you see all these modern inventions as extensions of our being, and just as long as you stay aware of the fact that you have this consciousness or this force bigger than yourself, you don't need to be afraid of AI or any of these Zoom things.
So the trauma thing is, it's like identity. It's the thing that's bandied around quite a lot. So I look at it in two ways. So I look at the way that you did, like the traumatic event. Right? So you've got the traumatic event, and then you've got the aftermath. You've got the feelings. Like we got the feelings, and that thing I came up with a few months ago. Trauma is a toxic cocktail of insecurity, anger, and fear, and shame. But we are the glass, not its contents.
Yes.
So I'm separating who we are, the glass, from how we feel, the contents. And I put a post on Facebook last week, I think it was, are we our trauma?
Right? Yes.
And somebody, we got a few yeses, a few no's. And then there was, no, but it's part of me. Well, if it's part of you, then it's you. To split hairs, right? So it's to me, it's trauma is an event, or the aftermath, or the emotional aftermath of the event, and that veils that. But I'm 56 now. How old are you?
53.
53, right? So yours was 53 years ago. Mine was 56 years ago. The event is long past. We're just talking about the emotional aftermath. just. We're talking about
Yeah.
the emotional aftermath. So we're talking about our feelings. We're talking about our emotions, and I also think we're talking about our beliefs. But I'll just put those to one side for a minute. Right? So how we feel isn't who we are.
Yes, and that
Who
is
we are.
separating a lot of people who stick with that.
How we feel is our
Feeling
trauma.
hurt, and they define themselves by their feelings.
Yes, we say I am traumatized.
Yeah.
Say I am whatever. I am an alcoholic. I am. This is the common I am. The commonality is the I am. The I am is always present, but it gets overlooked, and all the focus goes on the end. So I am depressed. I am.
Yes.
You know.
Yeah.
The I am is the consciousness. It's the water, if you like, and all the concentrate is added to it.
Well, the trick is to let that go, of course. The trick is to see over that. I've let myself be dragged along by too many of these questions. I thought I was defined by my anxieties that I've had for a long time. I thought I was defined by my Jewishness, like my ancestors are Jewish and they suffered greatly in the Holocaust. I was feeling a victim in that part. I was feeling a victim with the Parkinson diagnosis. And all of these things is a cocktail that could make you feel really bad. Like, I am so sad. I am so, why me?
It's going to be a lifelong hangover.
Yes, and that's pointless. That's really, really pointless. I don't know if I needed to have this extra diagnosis to step over this victimhood, but it certainly helped me. So I'm almost blessed that I've got this Parkinson diagnosis because it helped me realize that it's really, really pointless to let yourself be defined by, well, your, like you say, your feelings.
So we're saying we're not our labels or our
No.
we're not our professions or our roles. We're not our heritage. We're not our religion. We're not our diagnoses. We're not our trauma. Those are all the things that we are not. I want to go back to the. First off, you were talking about the Stone Age and the stars and looking about that. So I'm not a religious guy, but one of the things that I hear is in terms of the I am is that I think it was Moses. You know, Moses was talking to God with the burning bush, and the burning bush says, "I am that I am."
Yes.
I am that I am. So that's why the I am depressed. I am I am depressed. I am traumatized. The I am is always there. It's always present, right? The diagnosis thing. So when I read the primal wound, I thought this explains everything, and the primal wound is a diagnosis.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a pretty hardcore one. It's quite damning because it's very painful. It focuses on the trauma, and I had to put it down because I was maybe being confronted with the dark side.
Yeah. So is consciousness wounded?
Yeah, not necessarily. It plays a role, especially in our case, but I am pretty sure there are people who are consciously rich, let's say, who don't have a trauma. But it helps.
Okay, so I'm going to take you back on that. So the biggest thing, one of the biggest moments for life is because I went down. The primal wound took me down like it took you down.
Yeah.
until I had this humongous insight that who we truly are, consciousness, is fundamentally unwoundable.
Yes.
And what I mean by that is, to use my diamond analogy, right? You take a knife to a diamond to try and cut it. You can't cut it.
Yeah.
The primal the primal wound. If I use primal wound and trauma interchangeably, right? Trauma veils the diamond, like my fist veils the diamond when I'm holding the diamond in my fist. My hand is the metaphor for the metaphor, primal wound, and my hand is also the trauma. So my hand is trauma and the primal wound. They're one in the same. But the diamond is veiled. Who I truly am is veiled. Who we truly are is veiled by our trauma, is veiled by our primal wound. It's not cut. You can't, to have a wound, there's got to be a cut. To have a cut, you've got to have you've got to have an implement, like a knife, and to be cut, the substance has to be cuttable, and a diamond isn't cuttable by a knife. It doesn't work like that. The diamonds, the
diamond
knife
is the hardest.
The diamond is way harder. It is the hardest. It's hard. Yeah, it's way. It is the hardest. It's harder. It's harder than the knife. So no cuts. I came up with this. Yeah. Does that all make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. I came up with another metaphor for this the other day, right? So this is the spiritual stab vest. Yeah. So a stab vest, you know what a stab vest is? It's a vest that you wear
to protect
you from being cut.
Yeah.
Right. So
like a bouncer.
Yeah. So you're walking down. You're in a shady part of Amsterdam, and you're lost, right? And you take a side street that you shouldn't have taken.
Yeah.
And you see it's dark, but there's one street light, and in the street light you see a flash of light, and in that you see a mugger, right, with a hoodie on, and you see it's his knife, and then before you know, and so you know there's trouble, trouble's coming, right? So that you go to fight, flight, response, or you freeze. You freeze, and your body's telling you that you're feeling all the impending cut. You're feeling the impending cut, right? And then the guy's on you because you've frozen in your trauma response, and he plunges the knife towards you. And you feel the pain of his weight and the knife, and so your whole life flashes through you. You think and so you're absolutely terrified, and then you realize that you've got the
nothing
vest on.
Yeah.
And he hasn't damaged you at all. All he's done is taken your wallet and your mobile phone and hightailed it to the nearest drug dealer to trade them.
Yeah, I see. Yeah. Yeah, it's similar to you walk to the supermarket and you bump into a person and all your shoppings fall on the floor and you're ready to start cursing and punching the person who's done it to you until you realize he's blind.
Wow.
And then that's the essence of mindfulness, I guess.
You have a
Uh,
change.
yeah, you realize, it's my fault. I shouldn't have let myself be filled with anger and frustration, and that's if you can bring this mindset into the practice, and the same goes to your death expectation story, you become a much better person. You yeah, you let go of what is defined as ego, mostly frustration, uh, aspirations, hope, and identity is one big part of this. So when you're coming up with all these things that were not defined as being, it raises the question, what are we defined then by? And again, it's easier to say what you're not being defined by than what you are being defined by. But I think it's something that you cannot put into words. You can hint at it. You can. That's why all the biblical stories are about. And a small side note, I know you must be aware that Moses was adopted.
Oh, of course, yeah.
So was Steve Jobs, and so was Superman, and so was Batman, and so was Spider-Man. They were all adoptees.
Yeah.
And they all had superpowers. And you might argue, well, because of their traumatizing experience. Moses was being called upon God. Steve Jobs, well, the iPhone and technology and progress. And all the superheroes are more or less remnants of ancient mythological folk tales of creating something mighty that helps you fight adversity. And that's what we have to do as well as adoptees. We have to find our superpower. And I think I found mine, and it's not one where I have to wear a cape, but where I just walk on the street and I'm thinking like Jim Carrey in, I think, The Truman Show. He said, "Come on, you mighty smiter." And he challenges, that's not Truman Show, it's another one. Either way, he challenges God. He's God. He becomes
God
God.
Almighty, is it? God Almighty.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's it. He challenges him to change the plan, basically. And yeah, I can identify with that. You challenge your predicament. You said, I don't want it to be me. But then at some moment, a lot of these adoptees come out with their stories in their 50s, because that's when often children have left home. My child is only 5, so it's a bit of an anachronism. But um, I wouldn't say this identity question wasn't playing a role in my 20s, because it was, but it's now in my 50s that I've learned to accept certain truths where, well, truth is a bit of a challenge term in this context, I guess, but you know what I mean. It's a certain acceptance of challenging things.
Yeah. I'd say there's another thing that we're not, and that's we're not the voice in our head that tells us that we're not good enough.
That's a very important one. Oh, have I struggled with that one?
And I spent 5 days basically exploring that.
Yes.
14 years ago. In fact,
Yeah.
you leave it 5 days just on that. So it goes from a nice idea, you know, a nice idea, a bumper sticker, you know, to something that you get in your heart, and then you get it in your bones, and then you forget it.
Yeah.
And then you forget it.
Yeah, but it went through you. It's washed you in a way. You know, you change all your body cells in your, like your cells in your body change every 7 years or something like that. And I guess it's the same with getting some kind of a knowledge about something. Like when you learn a new skill, like playing piano or something, you struggle with your consciousness a lot to learn something, and then you need to let go, and then is when the real piano playing can manifest itself. I'm not a piano player, but I know a little bit about the creative process, that you know you need to let go in order to really flourish. And that's the same with these knowledge about consciousness, I guess. If it's something that's bothering you and you think, oh, that's how it works, that's how you need to let go, then again, that's a bit of a paradox, but you need to set one foot after the next and move on. That's the perhaps the most trivial but most important lesson you can learn from all, is you just need to move on and not dwell on things too much.
The fundamental question for me, for us to ask, is how this loss of our birth mother becomes a belief that we're not good enough.
Yeah.
Because one's a very, you know, it's a visceral feeling, and one's a very concrete belief system.
Yes.
And questioning that is where the answers come for us, you know, where we see this stuff for ourselves. And we have to,
Yes.
it's no good us, it's no good you and me talking about this if we can't give the listeners this understanding. They have to have that understanding.
Yeah, I know obviously, like you do, people who were not adopted, and you've been trying to explain to them, if they're interested, what it's like to be adopted. And you automatically come down to the question of the relinquishment of your birth mother, with whom you spent 9 months in a warm environment, and you heard the heartbeat, and you've heard the breathing and the distress of your mother. And then suddenly that tie is severed, physically and psychologically. And that indeed creates a trauma that I can honestly say that will probably never heal in my case. But I've learned to deal with it. It's something that is, if I'm thinking about it too much, is infinitely painful. Like, I see my son now, and I imagine him being away. Like that's unimaginable. And I love my son. I cannot see it in any other way than that he's with me. And that's, for me, a large part of the answer. But I don't think you have children.
No.
No. It's something that, you know, art plays a huge role in my case as well, and people. And this trauma will, even with all the things that I've tried, will never completely heal. But soon I'll be dead. And that's it. That's the only truth that exists with 100% certainty. So what have you got to lose? Your mother has given birth to you, and you have this one important reminder, I think, behind the dog pillows, probably. Or
yeah, the teddy bear.
Yeah, and that's as good as it gets. That's, for you, is that a reminder of where you're coming from. And it can only be addressed in a non-rational way. But you need to accept things the way they are, and yeah, just embrace the fact that you've been given this life, because it is beautiful. It's marvelous that you can smell grass and that you can see the color of rose.
Not Dutch grass, listeners. You know, grass.
Not that grass. For some with a more acquired taste, maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's you know, I'm Dutch. I like cheese. I like pancakes, and these things give me pleasure. When I was in England 2 weeks ago, we had a camping in the woods. My wife's brother owns a piece of wood land, and we made fish and chips. And my God, that was the best fish and chips all of us ever had. It was, of course, because of the circumstances played a huge role, but they were phenomenal. And that's unforgettable. And at such a moment, you realize, yes, time and place don't matter. You just have that. And you need to cherish these little moments in between, perhaps traumatic moments.
Yeah. Feels like a good place to bring it in. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, David. I knew it was going to be brilliant, and it was, my friend. Thank you to listeners. Check out the links in the show notes. You can find out more about David, and check him out on social. Check out his books. And we'll speak to you again very soon.
Thank you very much. It was indeed a very profound conversation, and I'm happy to have spoken to you.
Yeah, me too, buddy.
Right.
Cheers, listeners. Thanks a lot. Goodbye.